Da, 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 da,
Oh, I
da.
like that music.
Michael, the Oscar announcements, who will be the nominees for the 2023 Oscars will be announced tomorrow.
Is that tomorrow for the upload date?
No, literally tomorrow. So
Okay.
it is quite annoying that we are reviewing our movie Belfast today, so we're going to miss it. But anyway, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Basically, there are front runners for if movies that are going to be nominated for Best Picture, actors, actresses, etc. And I'm just going to read you a list of them, and I want you to tell me which one of them is going to get snubbed.
Okay.
There's always a snubbing, isn't there? So
Yes.
This is from Discussing Film. So their predictions: Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
Oh yeah.
The Fabelmans, The Banshees of Inisherin.
Yes.
Top Gun Maverick.
Oh.
Elvis, Tar, and Avatar: The Way of the Water. Also Babylon, Women Talking, All Quiet on the Western Front. What do you think?
So which one of those is going to be the snub?
Yes.
Top Gun Maverick. I feel like it's going to be one of those like Lego movie things where even though apparently it's pretty good, I just feel like the Academy wouldn't want to really show, because also it's not got like that fantasy element to it, because like I know sometimes they will nominate action films, but I feel like I feel like they think it's too lowbrow.
I'm not sure if fantasy is considered highbrow, to be honest. I don't really get your logic there. But anyway, let's see if that comes true. Let's go on to Best Actor. And by the way, I think Avatar: The Way of Water out of those
will be snubbed.
Yes. So Brendan Fraser, Austin Butler, Colin Farrell, Bill Nighy, or Paul Mescal.
Okay, I don't have any reason for this, but I'll say Bill Nighy. Why not?
Bill Nighy's going to get the snub. Sorry, even though he gave a great performance in Living, it's not going to work. And finally, Best Actress: Michelle Yeoh, Cate Blanchett, Danielle Deadwyler, Michelle Williams, Ana de Armas. Which one's going to get snubbed?
Oh crap! I don't know. Ana de Armas. She was nominated last year, wasn't she?
Yeah, she's nominated for Blonde, playing Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that film obviously wasn't well. Like there was apparently lots of people didn't like that film. So yeah. So, maybe that will mean that she doesn't get it. Yeah.
A reasonable pick to be snubbed. I think that I think Paul Mescal could get snubbed, quote unquote, and I also think that Ana de Armas could get snubbed as well. So there you go. But obviously we'll do our predictions later. But yeah. Don't know how to end this.
Let's hope that our review doesn't get snubbed and everybody says that it's really good. Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films that have come out in the near and distant past, we give them a couple of watches and evaluate them beyond first impressions. I'm your host Michael and I'm joined as always by my co-host Luke, and this week we are celebrating the Oscars and we're looking at the films that were nominated for Best Picture last year at the Oscars. So this week specifically we are going to be looking at the film Belfast. So Luke, why don't you tell us a thing or two about the film Belfast?
Can you say that again but not say film? That last bit.
Okay. Oh, I see. So Luke, why don't you tell us a thing or two about Belfast?
Sure thing, Michael. Belfast is the capital and largest city of Northern Ireland, standing on the banks of the River Lagan on the east coast. It is the 12th largest city in the UK and the second largest in Ireland. It has a population of 345,000 as of 2021. By the early 19th century, Belfast was a major port. It played an important role in the Industrial Revolution in Ireland, briefly becoming the biggest linen producer in the world, not just one of them, the biggest, earning it the nickname Linenopolis.
Wow, bad name.
Yeah, very bad name. By the time it was granted city status in 1888, it was a major centre of linen production, tobacco processing, and rope making. Shipbuilding was also a key industry. The Harland and Wolff shipyard, which built the RMS Titanic, was once the world's largest shipyard. Wow.
Wow.
There you go. There's Belfast.
Yeah, that is interesting. I'm actually quite interested in the fact that it's not the largest city in Ireland, because I thought that all of the cities I would assume Dublin is bigger, which is surprising to me because
obviously.
I thought all of the cities in Ireland proper were tiny because they didn't have enough potatoes, so they all died.
Okay. But obviously you know how much bigger Dublin is than the rest. And I know you're making a joke, but it is important to.
Obviously, we know. Sometimes I feel like the population is growing so rapidly. You could say it's Dublin every day.
There you go. I thought you were going to maybe make that kind of joke. Then I thought Belfast was biggest, but then I realised the population of the Republic of Ireland's capital, kept on doubling. So
yeah, and the other thing is you got to bear in mind that Belfast population is growing very slow.
I'm not sure it is though.
All right.
No. Yeah. Okay. Right. Fine. So actually, of course, we are talking about the movie Belfast.
Yes.
Which came out in 2021, because of course it is the most wonderful time of the year where we review last year's Oscar nominees, and of course Belfast was one of them for Best Picture, obviously. So yeah, this week we're doing Belfast. It is a 2021 British coming-of-age drama film written and directed by Kenneth Branagh. I just said that because, of course, we make movies about Ireland better than they ever could. Basically.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, Ireland. What are they even doing?
And I mean, obviously, the Banshees of Inisherin, that movie, which is of course set in Ireland, about Ireland, might win Best Picture this year.
Yes, I've heard good things about that movie.
Yes.
As somebody who avoids finding out any information about any movies at all to help with my role in this podcast, I've still heard good things about that movie.
The film received 7 nominations at the Academy Awards, including Best Picture, and of course it won for Best Original Screenplay, which we will get into. It's why we are specifically looking at this movie, because it won Best Original Screenplay. The movie was directed by Kenneth Branagh. It was written by Kenneth Branagh, and it stars Kenneth Branagh. No, it's not. It doesn't. Yeah. I was, how I made that joke with Licorice Pizza last week.
Yes.
And of course, I was going to say, obviously, you could make some comparisons, and I kind of will, to Licorice Pizza in this movie in terms of Kenneth Branagh and Paul Thomas Anderson. And I was thinking, Paul Thomas Anderson, he should have called that movie San Fernando Valley, to mirror Belfast, which is, of course, but obviously
every movie should be named after where it's set.
But that's the thing, he sets all his movies in San Fernando Valley, does PTA, so that would be a bit confusing, wouldn't it? Yeah. So he can't really do that. So the movie stars Catriona Balfe, Judi Dench, Jamie Dornan, this fucking name, man. Ciarán Hinds.
Oh yeah.
Ciarán Hinds. Who knows? Who the fuck knows? Colin Morgan, Josie Walker, and Jude Hill. So there you go. The movie was released on the 21st of January 2022 in the United Kingdom. Of course, we are doing movies from 2021 primarily, but I guess, this got a release at a film festival. It was released at the Telluride Film Festival in Colorado in the United States. Yes. So it's technically a 2021 movie, but whatever. It was released in 2022, about a year ago, almost exactly a year ago. And Michael, can you tell me? Oh, actually, the music. We'll just mention the music because we rarely do. The music was by Sir George Ivan Morrison. He was a Northern Irish singer-songwriter, because the music plays a very important part in this film. Michael, can you guess what the budget was for Belfast?
Well, maybe they had to spend a lot of money on that music, but then also, okay, so let's say that this movie cost. I think this movie cost $25 million.
You know what, Michael? Spot on.
Really?
Spot on. Well, it's 20 to 25 million, so you're in the right range there, pal. So good guess. Can you tell me how much money this movie raked in at the box office?
Well, okay, so last time Licorice Pizza, it didn't make very much. I feel like, again, I don't see how this movie would have made that much. So I'm going to say this movie made, I think I'm just going to say this movie made 25 million.
Oh, you're so close to being less than half.
Oh, really?
It's $49 million.
That's so funny.
Yeah,
yes,
so
well done, me.
No marks against your name, but you're forgetting, Michael, that of course, people in Belfast would have loved this movie.
That is true.
Yeah. Oh, it's called Belfast. Anyway, Michael, did you like the movie Belfast?
Well, when you said you were thinking about comparing this movie to Licorice Pizza, I was thinking about comparing it to this movie called, I don't know if you've heard of it, called Roma. And the reason why is because, it's obviously a black and white film set, in the past, 60s, 70s kind of time, in a country that is, pretty much third world. And, all of those similarities got me thinking, it's kind of similar. And I feel like comparing it in that way, I'm like, I I mean, I still liked this movie. Like, it's still a better movie than a bad movie. But by and large, I feel like there wasn't that much to appreciate from this movie compared to a lot of other movies, in my view. I think, obviously, it had this kind of conflict aspect going on, like societal conflict, but I just feel like the way that was handled was largely, I guess I'd say, on the nose, which I guess you could say, well, conflict is on the nose. But yeah, I don't know. For me personally, I just didn't really feel like this film was like justifying its existence that much.
While you say it's not justifying its existence, you of course know who Kenneth Branagh is, right?
Well, I know that he's a famous guy, because of course he directed all the Shakespeare plays, like Hamlet, probably.
And you know about his childhood, right?
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I know he's Irish from his name. I don't actually know much about the specifics of his childhood.
Well, you know he grew up in Belfast, right?
Yeah, okay, that would make sense. Yeah, so it's autobiographical to some extent.
Yes, exactly. So that's why I compared it to Licorice Pizza, which, of course, Paul Thomas Anderson sets all these movies that he makes, I think all of them, in the San Fernando Valley, and Licorice Pizza did seem like, compared to a lot of his movies, he's set a couple that are not there, obviously. Yes. But yeah, a lot of his movies are set there, and of course, Licorice Pizza felt very personal. I think that's why he decided to make it. We went through last week, of course, why it's personal to him, and the weirdness perhaps associated with that. But again, this movie is, of course, a very personal movie from Kenneth Branagh. And we'll get, I guess you could say that some of the conflict is on the nose, but again, you made the counterpoint. Conflict is often on the nose, and we'll get into that. But yeah, I do think that this movie has a very nice vibe, and it's clear that I know you like to mock Ireland a lot for some reason. I don't really know why.
I think it's just because I feel like it's because I'm from the southeast of England, so I like to think that I represent the UK, and therefore I think it's funny for me to make fun of the places proportionate to how much they've been victims of British imperialism.
Okay, I see. But the thing is, obviously, it's this working class neighbourhood in Belfast, and he clearly, loves it and has fond memories of it. And you get a really nice vibe from it, despite the sectarian violence going on. A really nice vibe from this movie. You can understand why he loves this city.
It's like people who really miss the 1950s, even though there was all the racism. Like, I just get good vibes.
Yes,
from the old 1950s.
Yes, well, not really, because he acknowledges the issues.
Yes, that's a good point.
With Belfast in the late 1960s, early 70s. He acknowledges them, and it's tragic, of course, that he has to leave. But it's of course very, like I said, personal to him. It's a charming movie. It is kind of inoffensive, which is quite bizarre given the topic. But you watch it and you're like, oh yeah, nobody could really come out of this movie disliking this movie.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty damn hard to do. So overall, it's just a nice movie about this guy's childhood. Set amongst the backdrop of this sectarian violence, which of course is based on a real life experience. So I found it not interesting. I mean, it was kind of interesting, but just the vibe, I guess, throughout the movie.
Good vibes.
The charm of it, despite what's happening in the background, was good. And of course, the music played a part in that, I think, as well. And that's going to be my lit pick, actually. But whatever. I got it out of the way here. But how many nitpicks do you have?
I've got 2 nitpicks.
Okay, go on then. So
the first one is I wrote, he's a cuck with Ronnie Boyd. And it's, of course, a reference to when the kid says about this girl he likes. I can't remember her name. Catherine. He says, oh, I would like her to marry me. Even if she still liked Ronnie Boyd, or even if she still loved Ronnie Boyd, that would be fine, but she'd be married to me.
I don't think he said love.
Okay, maybe he said like, but either way, in my head, that sounded pretty cucky, look.
Yeah, you're very obsessed with cooking for some reason.
Yeah, exactly.
4chan has ruined your brain, hasn't it?
Yes. And then this one, I don't know if this one should be a nitpick or like worse or maybe better, but it's just the fact that obviously, in the middle of the looting, the mum takes him back to put the washing powder back.
I had a problem with this. That was more than a nitpick for me.
Yeah, okay, I wasn't sure about that.
That seemed like a very just dumb thing to do, very stupid. they're just putting your kid in danger when literally you could have just taken it back after, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll get to that later. Anyway, so my nitpick is that, so there's this scene, you know, there's plenty of these scenes where, you know, these people are just walking around Belfast, you know, and you know, they're spending time together because, you know, it's not just about the war and, you know, the drama. You want to get a sense of what life was like, and obviously, you know, the family, they're spending time what looks to be, you know, in the summer, you know, when the kids are doing like long jumping.
Yeah.
And you know, it's warm, you know, and then a few weeks later it's Christmas. And
Yeah, that is a good point.
yeah, I was thinking like, oh, they clearly filmed this in the summer, and they were like, oh yeah, there's Christmas like in a few weeks in terms of the movie, so yeah, that doesn't really work unless it was like the hottest November ever in Belfast. Like it's
Yeah.
like 25 degrees.
Well, you know, I mean, obviously, British weather can be pretty wild sometimes. I remember one Christmas we went out for a walk in t-shirts. I was like, how is this even real life? But,
yeah,
you know,
I mean,
yeah,
that
but I
was-
do agree, like, even if that were true, like, obviously in terms of, you know, making the film seem, like, more, I guess, like,
Yeah.
coherent, like, or, like, so you can understand what's going on. Yeah, they should have made it so that you could see the seasons changing.
Well, that's the thing. They're talking about Christmas, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, it's Christmas soon." And in terms of the movie, you know, Christmas happens like 5 minutes after, and
Yeah.
then it's like, "Oh, yeah, they're out." You know, it's clearly summertime when they're, you know, they're having fun. It's like, yeah, you know, there's a British weather ain't that good in
Yeah.
in November. And my lit pick, you know, the soundtrack is very good. I enjoyed it. It really again contributes
What
to
was your favourite song?
Everlasting Love, of course, because I've been singing it. Yeah, go on, take it away.
Everlasting love. Yeah, I like that song too. I can't. There was like a song in there I think was pretty funky. I can't think what it was. It's like I think it was like during one of like the fight scenes or something like that. It was kind of like a funky song, like a do 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 something like that. But I can't really remember.
So let's get into the plot of Belfast. So Buddy is a young boy on the cusp of adolescence. I mean, I'd say he's a few years away, to be honest.
Yeah, I was
It's
gonna
like-
say that. Yeah, like I was thinking that too. Like, doesn't he literally cry when he's told he's gonna like move house? Like, he
Well,
seems
to be
like he's
fair,
like
I'm just saying he seems like he's like 8 years old. you know?
yeah. I was gonna say 8 too. Yeah,
Yeah, cusp implies like a couple of years, not like 4. But anyway,
yeah.
whose life is filled with familial love,
Oh,
childhood hijinks, and
hijinks. I don't know. I just find that like a really cute word.
yeah, like robbing a Catholic, you know, supermarket.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a blossoming romance. Yet, so yeah, all this lovely stuff, you know, that people reminisce about
Yeah,
concerning
it's
their...
ruined by the presence of Catholics in his neighbourhood.
Yes, I know. If only they'd just go away.
Yeah.
Yes, with his beloved hometown caught up in increasing turmoil, his family faces a momentous choice. Hope the conflict will pass or leave everything they know behind for a new life. Yeah, the honest trailer on this movie, I remember it said something like, you know, if you see one portrait of a director's hazily remembered childhood, make it Licorice Pizza. But
That's quite funny.
if you want to see another, make it Belfast. And it's like,
That's funny.
yeah, Kenneth Branagh tries to have it all, combining the whimsy of his youth with a grim backdrop of ethno-religious violence. And again, you see that contrast, and I was thinking before going into it, because I knew what the movie was about, of course, I was like, is this going to be like what's it called? That movie with Taika Waititi, you know?
Taika Waititi. Oh, yeah, Jojo Rabbit.
Yeah, Jojo Rabbit.
I thought of Jojo Rabbit at one point in this
Yeah.
film.
It's like it's going to be the whimsy of his childhood as a Nazi, as a young Nazi, and the comedy, and like, oh, can he hide this Jewish girl from the Nazis who are
Yeah.
about to kill her? Which, of course, they did. Well, that's why the tone didn't really work very well. It was more of a comedy, of course, that movie than this.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, is it going to go down that path where like just the contrast between again the childhood hijinks and just the violence going on in the background is just too much, and it just the tone is just way off from scene to scene. That is not the case. I think there isn't that much violence in this movie. There's the big violent scene at the beginning, and of course,
Yeah, which kind of just like, it's like very, it's like sudden, very sudden.
yes,
It's like, I feel like
yes.
you would get more warning about riots happening. I like the idea like it was just like a literal flash mob.
Yes, perhaps, but I'll talk about that when we get to it. But yeah, I think again, there's not so much violence. Just there's the threat of violence over and over again, and of course at the end you have, you know, the looting of the shop. That really is as bad as it gets after the first, you know, scene. So yeah. I think that helps, because if there was too much violence, then the tone really would not be as good. It wouldn't feel as good, you know, because it's a difficult thing to pull off, like happy vibes, you know. Oh, look at this kid and his childhood isn't this nice to reminisce the nostalgia that Branagh must be feeling. Contrast that with what was actually happening. Tough to pull off, but I think limiting the amount of violence in the movie, and just having the threat of violence, every few so often appear. That does work in making sure the tone is okay and the contrast isn't too overwhelming, right?
Yeah. I do think to an extent there's a bit of a swings and roundabouts element because, on the other hand, I would say like a bit more, let's say, atonality would have made it more interesting, and I guess I'll use this phrase, emotionally challenging. Because, for example, I mean, the one thing I think I remember I rated Jojo Rabbit a bit higher than you, and I think it's because like there is that aspect of obviously you can have a film that's a bit more interesting to engage with when the tone can be a bit all over the place, which I know is like a bit of a measured compliment or like a backhanded compliment, because it's basically saying, well,
okay.
But like the thing is, obviously the thing with it's not like a bad thing, but it's one of the things which I think adds to this film's overall sense of being kind of just all right.
If the movie was worse,
if the movie was worse, it would be better. No,
it would be more entertaining to talk about.
Yes, that's exactly it. But ultimately, I think the fact there wasn't as much violence was good. I will say, I mean, I don't really know if like the absence of, because it is kind of weird, like the way the violence is in the film, because like it's sort of like a massive thing early on, and then it's just kind of like mostly consists of this random guy like threatening them for it. So I don't know. I feel like maybe
I think that was the right thing to do, though.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they. Yeah. I guess I'm trying to work out if maybe they could have had a bit more, I guess, excitement. So not necessarily like darkness, because I agree with you, that would be a bit of a clash of the tone, but maybe a bit more like excitement from it. But I don't know. I don't think so necessarily, because then you'd be with like these serious things, these serious ethnic conflicts. You don't want to turn them into the backdrop for excitement, do you? So yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, no, I think it's done well. You obviously you have that guy who keeps on pestering Jamie Dornan, and you have naturally the barricades that are set up outside their house, which is a constant reminder of what the situation is like. So anyway, the film chronicles the life of a working class Ulster Protestant family from the perspective of the 9-year-old. Oh, he's 9, Buddy. Yes, so Buddy's father Pa works overseas in England, while the family Ma, elder brother Will, and paternal grandparents Granny and Pop live in Belfast. Yeah, yes. It's a charming feel-good movie, which is weird considering the subject. But yes, again, to pull it off and for it not to be jarring, that's good work there.
Yeah. Also, it's a good thing that it's not charming because he's actually enthused by the anti-Catholic violence. That would be bad, I think. That
would be bad, yes. Let's before we go any further, give us a Northern Ireland impression.
God, so like I know it's like Irish but kind of sad. I know it's like Irish but kind of sad. Tell you what, I don't like all this violence that's happening in this neighbourhood of ours.
Say Belfast is the capital and largest city of Northern Ireland.
Belfast is the capital and largest city of Northern Ireland.
Yeah, it's like deeper. It's like gruffer.
Belfast is the capital and largest city of Northern Ireland.
Belfast.
I didn't like the part where I was blown up by a car bomb.
Belfast is the capital and largest city of Northern Ireland, standing on the banks of the River Legan.
Oh yeah, they do. Yeah, they do kind of like. Oh, you're like it's like a little weird thing with their R's, a little trill.
Buddy, make sure you don't get blown up by any car bombs now. You hear? Make sure you're back in time for tea.
They stole all our potatoes.
Don't talk to any British soldiers. Actually, no, the British soldiers would be on the Protestant side, really, wouldn't they?
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah,
which actually we'll get into later as well, talking about that. But yeah, Northern Ireland, all the sectarian conflict there, and thankfully we've moved past that, haven't we? Thankfully.
Well, you know what? I'm glad this film didn't make me feel guilty about being British. It's about time.
Well, that's a point I was going to make, which is why it's an inoffensive movie. Exactly. Which is why it had universal appeal. You couldn't really dislike it, even though you're talking about a very, a conflict which, of course, was very, divisive, shall we say, yes. In this country.
Certainly divided a lot of people's cars into lots of pieces.
Yes, indeed. And, naturally, we probably, we still remember obviously. Well, in this country, I mean, obviously we don't specifically, but we remember the Troubles.
It's within the living memory.
Yes, it is within living memory. Yes, indeed. The Good Friday Agreement, of course, which was signed in 1997.
Within our lifetimes.
Yeah, was signed after we were born. So yeah, and it's
not
it's
saying that we had anything to do with it, but just something to bear in mind.
Yeah. So it's it's something that still people remember who are middle aged today. And yeah, incredibly, it's inoffensive. Which again, we'll get into that later. Again, when talking about the British presence in this movie. So let's get into the movie now. So we start off with these modern shots of Belfast. And I guess this is because Branagh wants to show that modern Belfast is different to how it was 50 years ago.
Brought to you by the Northern Irish Tourist Board.
Yeah, exactly. Belfast has changed. Progress has been made. Again, that's why the film is shot in black and white. It really wants to hammer home this is the past. Things aren't like that anymore. Thankfully, Belfast is a modern city now. These problems, we'll show you these problems. How they affected this working class community, but they're gone now, thankfully, and will never return again. Of course, thanks to.
Yes, yeah, that's really funny.
Yeah, no, I just, of course, he probably had the idea for this movie for a while, and of course, he was probably producing this movie or coming up with the script while Brexit was going on, and Brexit was literally dividing Northern Ireland and the rest of Britain. More than it ever had done, in hundreds of years probably, with obviously, the fact that Ireland, part of the Good Friday Agreement is Ireland has to, there's no border between Northern Ireland and Ireland, but of course Ireland being in the EU, it means that Northern Ireland therefore has no border with the EU, even though it's part of Britain, because we're not in the EU, now, we have a border with the EU, so where's the border? Well, it's between Northern Ireland and the rest of Britain, even though we're in the same country, technically. The United Kingdom.
What an epic prank.
I know, and the one thing that could ruin the Good Friday Agreement and the peace in the last 25 years would be, indeed, something like Brexit. So yeah, let's keep our fingers crossed and hope
Brexit.
Yes, the vision of modern Belfast that Branagh portrayed in this movie remains. Yes, indeed. Anyway, so, during the August 1969 riots, a group of Protestant loyalists attacked the homes and businesses of Catholics on Buddy Street. The residents of the street set up a barricade to prevent further conflict, and Parr returns home from England to check up on the family's well-being. I would have liked, I think, if Buddy was playing outside for more than just 2 minutes. I think you talked about before, you weren't talking about really. Yeah, but you're talking about more in terms of how it happens within the movie.
Yeah.
I'm talking about how he's like, it's 2 minutes and all of a sudden you get right into it. I think it would have been a lot better if instead of 2 minutes, it was like 5 minutes.
Yeah, a bit more contrast before the build-up.
Yeah, exactly.
Or build-up for contrast.
You really get into it right away. Instead of a bit more. The scene is set up to introduce the conflict rather than the conflict happening while other things are happening in the scene. And I think that it'd be better if they just waited a bit, essentially, to make it more like surprising and like, oh wow, what a shock this must be to these kids,
Yeah. Also, I mean, I do wonder to what extent like having the conflict be so early on creates like a sense that. Because I was obviously prevaricating a bit on how enthused I was by the handling of the conflict in the film, and I think part of it is because it's hard not to feel like the conflict should maybe get more focus because it emerges so quickly that you're like, oh, this film's going to be about the conflict. So I guess maybe if they would have had more focus on his life and then the conflict happened, you'd be like, okay, his life is going to be the primary focus? I don't know.
Nah, I think it's fine because the movie is about the conflict is constantly coming up.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah. I had a funny comment about the conflict constantly coming up, which is, and I don't know when else I was going to mention this, but I do think there is some funny dialogue, and I don't know if that's just because Irish people talk weird, because I know different people, their different cultures have their different syntaxes, but I found it funny that there were a few moments where it just seemed like people were unnecessarily announcing themselves as Catholic and Protestant, and the funniest bit for me was when the first time like the gangster guy shows up, and he's like, I am a Protestant like yourself. And he just says it like, I don't know. And it just seems like, it just felt a bit unnatural to me because it's kind of like, I don't know. In my head, I don't know.
I mean, like, he's making a point,
I am a Protestant like yourself.
You're on my side, you're not with them filthy Catholics. You're on my side. You're a good Protestant man, or at least I thought you were. You know,
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like what I'm thinking is like I feel like it would have been just a little bit better if like maybe he would have said like we're on the same side, you know, we don't like these Catholics, rather than him literally saying the words I'm a Protestant.
It's the same fucking thing, isn't it? It's like
it's these subtle differences that really just sell a movie, just elevate it slightly. I think
there is no elevation there. It's the same thing, you know. I don't think it's it's fine being literal there when he's trying to make a point, you know. I think that's fine, right? Anyway, so. I also want to talk about the fact that, again, look, Kenneth Branagh, you know, it's his nostalgic, like, idealized version of his childhood, but this street seems just too perfect, you know, like, and you know, it's meant to show the contrast of, like, all the pain that this violence, this conflict brought to communities like the one he grew up in. But, you know, everybody is so nice and knows each other before the attack. It's just ridiculous. Like, everybody's saying, "Oh, how are you doing?" or whatever. Or
it's like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Yeah, like it's just like perfect. You know, everybody's cycling around, everybody's outside. It's like a bustling, you know, happy neighborhood. And I'm sure, you know, it's not that far from the truth, but it's like just picturesque. You know, and I guess maybe that's part of the point that Branagh's trying to make, like the conflict ruined it, but I don't know, it just seems a bit over the top, you know. Yeah. Anyway, the attack scene is good though. When they, you know, attack the street, I think that's good.
Yeah,
you know?
Kind of reminded me of Slumdog Millionaire when the slum gets attacked out of nowhere.
Get inside, buddy.
Get inside now. Run away.
Yeah. And what was that? That was Hindus on Muslims.
Yeah, it was Hindus versus Muslims.
A problem also caused by the British.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're funny. But yeah. I mean, I do agree. Like, it's it is pretty. I feel like, you know, having it be black and white makes it feel more intense, which is good as well.
That is another good point, actually. Yeah, it does feel more intense when it's black and white. Yeah. So
like Schindler's List.
Mm-hmm.
I would have been completely indifferent to the Holocaust if it had been in color.
The family attends church, where the minister delivers a harsh fork-in-the-road speech. The rhetoric is continually reflected upon by Buddy throughout the film. I mean, I guess.
Yeah,
so.
I found this bit a bit weird.
The thing is, he reflects on it. What the theme? You could say the theme. It connects to the theme about whether they should stay or whether they should go. But you know, or it could be the theme about like submitting to this sectarian conflict, you know, becoming, you know, well, thinking about our side and their side, you know, and basically you don't have to take that fork in the road, you know, or maybe the fork in the road is, you know, symbolic of you go down one path and you don't, you know, you are still a good person, you go down the other path and you start thinking of your neighbours as enemies because of they have a different religion. It's not really spelled out, really. So you could interpret that many ways, I think, right?
Yeah. For me, the there were kind of like two things I found weird about it. I did find it weird that he like does the speech and then he says like, "Now the money," or whatever he says, like which it felt a bit weird for a few reasons. Because one, it reminded me a bit of that scene in The Simpsons where I'm getting my Simpsons reference out the way early.
Well, it's meant to be comedic, obviously.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. So obviously it's meant to be comedic. But okay, so yeah, I mean, obviously, I guess you can imagine it was a Simpsons reference about Reverend Lovejoy only caring about money. But like, and you know, that's fine. The thing is, it's a bit weird because I feel like it felt like a very kind of like on the nose joke, which is fine. But like it kind of, the film apart from that didn't really have like any kind of comedy like that, so it just seemed almost a bit out of place because it almost seemed like a kind of jokey character, like a character you'd see in The Simpsons, like being like, fire and brimstone, blah blah blah. Oh, and now the money for the collection plate. I don't know why I made him West Country. But yeah, like to me that seems a bit more like kind of cartoony in terms of the contrast. So I don't know, I just thought it wasn't comedically similar to the rest of the film.
I mean, there are some moments like that. I mean, it's just a little moment. I mean, I don't know why you're so hung up on it.
Well, I'm not so hung up. The other thing I wanted to say is that I also kind of, I'm agreeing with you, I guess, with the whole, like, that fork in the road thing being a motif, because it is a bit weird, because obviously the...
A motif, huh?
Yeah, a recurring motif. Because, yeah, there's not, like... Obviously, this film isn't really about religion.
I don't know what it meant. It's meant to represent in the movie. Like
yes, that's why I'm agreeing. Yeah, so basically, and I think it probably would have been better if the film offered a bit more clarity with that. Because I don't know. Sometimes I don't like films to expect me to do all the work.
Well, maybe it's everything. Maybe it's one of them. I'm not sure, but like, you know, it's very open ended, unless I'm just missing something. So yeah, could be about him leaving, or the family leaving Ireland and going to England. It could be about the family choosing to side with the Protestants and treat the Catholics as the enemies. Or was it going to be about not taking, you don't need to take the fork in the road at all, basically. You don't need to be...
criticism of that duality.
Yeah, criticism, exactly. Yeah, criticism of the duality, either Catholic or Protestant, that fork in the road doesn't actually exist, really.
Yeah, because, I don't know, I feel like, the preacher's a funny guy, because also it's kind of like, I don't know, like, presumably he's part of the community, which is a bit weird, because, no, actually, wait, no. I was going to make a really stupid point, so just completely...
Okay, right, let's move on then. So... Buddy develops feelings for a fellow high-achieving Catholic classmate, Catherine, and they eventually become friends. So again, this is Branagh remembering, as we said, the whimsy of his youth, which is nice, but again, it's predictable, it's cliche, like this kid, he wants to talk to a girl he likes, and it's very sweet, isn't it? And, I'm just like, I guess you have to put that in the movie because, if you want to reminisce about your childhood, a young, innocent, love or whatever that he has for this girl, great, but it's just like, I guess that's what it is, and it hits all those beats, doesn't it? So I'd agree. Like, I mean, obviously, I guess it like adds an element of connecting him to Belfast, which obviously is relevant when he has to make the choice about whether or not to leave. But and also showing, that whole thing about, hey, well, who cares that she's Catholic or whatever.
That's it. Yeah,
that point.
She could be a practicing Hindu for all I care.
She could be a practicing Hindu for all you care. As long as she's not a bloody Jew.
Exactly.
That would... Because obviously the Protestants, they don't like Jews.
No,
Yeah. There's one thing I hate more than a Catholic.
It's a Jew.
It's a Jew. I wonder what is the rankings for Protestants,
In terms of like how much they hate Jews.
Yeah. Is it higher than Catholics or not?
Well, I mean, it's one of those weird things. Obviously, you've got like Mel Gibson, who's like very, famous for his hatred of Jews.
He's a Catholic, though, isn't
he? Yeah. So he would be team. So, well, I'm talking about it relatively. So I'm saying 100 years ago, the Catholics would have been more anti-Jew than the Protestants. But now it's probably but then you got the Americans with their whole evangelical pro-Israel thing. Exactly. I'll tell you what, Luke, it's multifaceted. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. See, right now, these crazy Protestants, who do they hate more, Catholics or Jews? I would have to say Jews. I think they're number one because although you point out the Israel thing, but also the fact that I think Catholics in general agree with a lot of their political positions more than your average Jewish person.
Oh, you know what? I actually, just for the record,
certainly
I had actually misunderstood. See, I had misunderstood because I thought you were asking who hates Jews more, Catholics or Protestants, but you're asking who do Protestants hate more.
That's
Catholics
why I clarified twice. Yeah.
Yes, I understand now. So with that in mind, I mean, I guess it has to be Jews, because I feel like most Protestants nowadays, they just don't really. I guess it depends because I feel like it's interesting actually because I bet that most Protestants have more mild annoyance for Catholics than they do mild annoyance for Jews, but they have more hatred of Jews than they do hatred of Catholics.
That's the thing. I think politically they're more similar to Catholics.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Politics has become overwhelming compared to religion. So,
exactly.
Religion. There's still differences between Protestants and Catholics, but certainly in America, that has become very, very important. Your politics, and of course, Jewish people are less likely to be Republican than Catholics probably.
Yes.
So there you go.
Bernie Sanders, eh?
Let's stop talking about all this religious shit and get back to Buddy and his whimsical childhood.
Yes.
So obviously he's fascinated. Well, firstly, he's a precocious kid, isn't he?
He's precocious.
Yeah, he's clearly written like that. And the thing is, I know I thought this, and then I listened to a YMS review of this movie, just to see what he thought. And indeed, he thought the same thing with me, which is the lines were written for him. Were obviously it's clearly written by an adult. Like a kid would not speak like that. Like there is, you need to dial back the precociousness, by about 50%. Like he can be a bit precocious here and there, but like some of his lines are like, oh yeah, a kid would never ever say that. And that's very clear to see, unfortunately.
Yeah, I can't think of any specific examples, but I can. I guess it's a kind of just.
It's just the way he talks back to people. It's like, a kid wouldn't say something like that. That's going too far. But anyway,
Yeah.
he's also fascinated, Buddy, by movies as well. Like, obviously, Kenneth Branagh was when he was a kid, I imagine.
Yes.
Write what you know, eh? It'll get you an Oscar. And again, YMS pointed this out as well. And yeah, I also like how the movies are in colour compared to the rest of the movie.
Yes, I thought it was cool.
Showing the movies were obviously an escape, and obviously he loved this world. This was a very important thing for him, of course, during those troubling times.
Troubling.
Yes,
it's interesting also that there's a play that's in colour. I mean, it's not that interesting, but it's just worth noting. It's not just TV.
Exactly. It really does enhance the theme, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's,
also, of course, Kenneth Branagh, he's very famous for turning plays into films.
Yes, he is. So there you go. Yeah, obviously, because it wasn't just movies. He's fascinated with plays as well, I imagine. So you have to have that in, a play, and it's in colour. It's better for the movie's theme there. So, local criminal and sectarian rabble-rouser Billy Clanton approaches Pa, demanding his involvement in the cause.
The cause.
When Pa refuses, he becomes aggressive and continues to incessantly approach Buddy. It's interesting, I think, to see this happen with his father, because I just think it's kind of interesting to see this from a historical perspective, what must have happened. Because I don't know how realistic it is, because this guy, he's just some random Protestant. He's not important in this community. He doesn't even live there. So I don't know why this guy would be so obsessed with getting him on his side. So,
I was thinking that, yeah.
But maybe that was the case in places like, Belfast. It doesn't matter if you are basically not here and live in England. They still want you on their side. To further enhance this us versus them divide. If that was the case, then it's just interesting to see from a historical perspective.
I was kind of thinking that too. I was thinking, why is he so invested in Jamie Dornan?
Because he won't bend the knee, Michael.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Yeah, he's just. It's like in Bug's Life. There was that one ant who stood up to me.
Okay, yeah. So you think this is too literal, it's too on the nose, basically, him trying to convert this guy, which again I don't know if it was, because it seems like from their dialogue this would kind of be how it went. I don't think there's anything that unrealistic about him, the dialogue used by Billy Clanton, that character, trying to convince Jamie Dornan's character to join him.
I mean, I guess the thing is, it's one of those things where it's kind of I think maybe people do. They could talk like that, but in terms of how it feels as part of the film, I guess it's just how it feels. I can't point to a specific thing. It's just when I'm watching, I just get that sense.
Wonderful. Thank you for that contribution.
Brilliant insight.
Okay. I know, I get what you feel. I get what you mean. Sometimes when you feel something's off, I just didn't feel that was off.
Yeah.
And it's on the nose, literally. But yeah, it would be on the nose. There's no reason to be subtle in these situations, is there?
I mean, I suppose actually the one thing which I find interesting, this isn't basically, obviously the one guy who's the real kind of anti-Catholic instigator is very much kind of a villain, and I guess you could say maybe one of the things missing from this film,
is an evil Catholic.
No, I wasn't actually thinking that. No, I was thinking kind of that exploration of how. And it's not uncommon for this to be missing in films, the kind of everyday prejudice from well-meaning people. Because obviously, if you want to be super woke with your narratives, you can point out that, of course, many people have these unconscious biases that are problematic in various ways, etc., etc. Obviously, that isn't in this film.
I don't think that's just realistic, how people get swayed, essentially.
Yeah, and, sometimes I like using the word woke just for fun.
Yeah, you're right, that's not in this movie, and maybe it would be interesting if there was a neighbour, or maybe one of their brothers, their family was being swayed and was trying to convince, Jamie Dornan's character, but obviously, that's not in it.
They do have, actually, I'm thinking about, the kid does have a few random lines early on where he's kind of he's asking about Catholics in a way that sounds suspicious, there's I can't remember what it is, he just asks some lines.
It's just kind of comedic though,
that's it.
It's not treated as serious, indication of the bigotry creeping into this kid's life. It's just isn't this kid saying dumb things? I think that's the interpretation.
Kids say the darndest things.
Anyway, so meanwhile, the family struggles to pay off their accumulated tax bill. Pa dreams of emigrating to Sydney or Vancouver. I mean, fucking hell. Imagine going from Belfast to Sydney.
I know, I was thinking that,
Wow. Prospect met with distress from Ma. However, she can no longer deny the option of leaving Belfast, as the conflict worsens and Pa is offered a promotion and housing deal in England from his employers. At Christmas, they attempt to discuss the matter with the boys, but Buddy breaks down at the thought of leaving. Yeah, again, it's stuff. This whole thing about leaving Belfast to go to England or wherever else, it's the stuff that would have happened, in this time period, and probably happened to Kenneth Branagh, I imagine, and it's communicated, I guess, in a non-incompetent way. And it's just, that's the thing. It covers all the bases. It's not done in a stupid way. It all makes sense.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with all that. But this is the point. I'm going to talk about the fact that this won Best Original Screenplay at the Oscars. And, this is, the heart of the movie, basically. Like, should they leave? Should they go? I really don't know how this won Best Original Screenplay. That's the thing. The vibes of the movie are good. Like, the way the movie is shot, the recreation
Production
of this,
design.
Yeah, the production design, the recreation of this era, in terms of how it looks and feels, and this and what would have happened, rather than the screenplay. That all the other stuff makes it interesting. The screenplay isn't that good, and this is an example of where it could be good, and it's just like simple, which is fine. Like, I don't think it needs to be that amazing, because obviously the story is quite simple. But it just doesn't seem to me like, watching this, it's like, oh yeah, this is the best original screenplay. Like, this is a very good screenplay. It feels like, the other aspects, the technical aspects, the music, the way it's shot, etc. That's what really elevates this movie into what would be considered a Best Picture contender. That's why I imagine it was nominated for Best Picture, not for its screenplay. And there's nothing in the movie to indicate that the screenplay award was worth it.
There's not like any great dialogue scenes, really. Like, there's fine dialogue scenes, but there's not like
it's
any,
not bad.
Really standout dialogue scenes.
Yeah, I'm not criticizing the dialogue or the writing, but it's just not amazing. And
I don't know. Sorry, I was just gonna say, I was thinking about another film. One of the first films we reviewed that ever won Best Picture. Sorry, no, won Best Screenplay was of course Manchester by the Sea, and I'm thinking about that film compared to this film. It's like Manchester by the Sea was so much more complex and nuanced with its character writing and things like that. And I think with this film, when you compare like for like, it makes this film look a little bit worse.
Okay.
In that regard,
I think that's true. Yeah, I think that is true. Yeah, and it's very similar. I mean, like when the mother or Ma describes how tough it would be, living in England compared to Belfast, how no one will know who you are. They won't understand how we talk.
They'll make fun of potatoes.
They'll make fun of us dying from potato famine. Like how Michael certainly would.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, if he had an Irish family living next door. And obviously they'll blame us for their sons dying here in Northern Ireland. All of that kind of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. Like, she goes through why it would be difficult for them to live in England. But there's nothing that special about how it's written, It's not a bad performance from the actress, and she tells it well. But it's just like, oh yeah, this is the type of conversation that would happen. There's nothing, like you say, complex about this scene. It's just about this movie is about a normal family in Belfast and the standard things they would go through or think about. It's more dramatic than usual, obviously, to make it more of a movie. And there's a dramatic scene coming up later, which is certainly probably didn't happen to the average Northern Irish family. But I want to take this from Lee Greenblatt of Entertainment Weekly, who said that Branagh's genuine affection and nostalgia for his subject suffuse the movie. Did you get that?
Suffuse? No, that's too fancy of a word for me.
I'm going to look up what it means.
It means, oh wait, suffuse, define, it means gradually spread through or over. Okay, that makes sense because it's infuse. Like if you infuse something, you're kind of mixing it into it. So it's probably the same etymology.
Yes. So the affection and nostalgia, suffuse the movie as she says. So yeah, it gradually spreads through or over.
This is interesting. So it comes from sub, meaning below, and fundir, meaning pour, which is of course from whence we get the word fondue.
Whence? Shut up. But that's the thing. That is true. That is true. Yeah, it covers the movie, this nostalgia. And then she goes on to say, if only the misty romanticism of his story could match it. And I think that's true. I mean, I don't really have a problem with the story. I'm not sitting there thinking, oh, damn it, if only the story could match it. I'm like, the story is simple, that's fine. But the fact that this would win Best Original Screenplay, to me is just kind of crazy, It's like this movie should be winning for, the technical stuff, not the actual, writing, not what's on the script page. Yeah. So, I don't know, man. That one's weird, but the Oscars are going to Oscars, aren't they? You know.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. The Oscars, they always like to award things to like for like the wrong categories a lot of the time.
Yes.
I would agree with you. Like, I think the idea that this film has like the best screenplay, yeah,
Of all movies in 2021. Anyway, so Moira recruits him into her local gang. This is Buddy. And the gang turns out to be Ulster loyalists that loot a supermarket during a riot. For one thing, I don't know what. So Moira has this gang. Right? I imagine she's with other kids who are like, like the, the youth, group of Ulster
the
loyalists.
youth.
Not that far, but like how you have like your under 16s in football.
Yeah. Your BNP youth.
Yeah, this is like the under 16s of the Ulster loyalists, basically, and Moira seems to be like she's a part of that. I don't know why though. Like she and Buddy are the only like kids who are looting this.
All the other kids have been killed.
Why are they the only ones looting the supermarket for one? That's a big, because she should be with other kids, her own age. It's just her, A reluctant Buddy is coerced into stealing a box of laundry detergent before he returns home and informs Ma of his activities. She berates him and drags both Buddy and Moira back to the ongoing looting in order to return their stolen items. Right, we've already been through this.
Yes.
For me, this is more than a nitpick. This is just, why the fuck would you do that in the middle of a riot? The British Army are probably going to be arriving soon as well. You don't want to get caught up doing that. That just seems like absolutely ridiculous.
I thought if he was shot by the British Army, he'd stop stealing.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, Billy then appears and takes them hostage as leverage for his own escape. Pa, Will, and the British Army arrive at the scene to end the riots. The good old British arriving to end the riot.
They're such heroes.
That's what they do.
Like, good old our boys, just always out there fighting the good fight.
Where would the Northern Irish be
without the British?
Without the British, that is a question I think few people over there want to ask, because they just know how great a debt they owe us.
Yes, exactly.
Isn't that right? So this initiates a standoff with Billy, who attempts a shootout until Pa and Will manage to disarm him. He is promptly arrested and swears retribution. Okay, and obviously this is what makes them leave for England, right? The fact that their lives are threatened, so they have to go, because they're not safe in Belfast any longer. But again, it is, of course, it's more dramatic, to make it an interesting way to get them, to leave for England, right? Because, you have to have this big moment rather than just the slow, it's not safe here anymore. You have this big moment, so they go. But again, it's I don't think it's a very realistic scene. And here's the thing, of course, this kind of thing like could happen, perhaps. Them being held basically at gunpoint almost by this, extremist Protestant who isn't happy with, the dad not, being on his side and joining the cause. But it does seem, it seems like this family is kind of like a normal family.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is a bit more dramatic than what you would expect. I again, you could say, well, this kind of stuff kind of did happen, but I think it'd be more realistic if, like, the older brother died, for instance.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way, because then that would be a real tragedy, and it would make the movie more tragic. Certainly.
I mean, it almost feels like, I don't want to really razz them, but I feel like you could almost describe it as like borderline goofy that this like. Family just like far. Randomly, like, I don't know, like in my head I'm kind of like, obviously it's not completely ridiculous because it is like a war zone, but like the aspect of like when you're watching like a film that feels like a kind of serious drama, and then like it suddenly turns into a
western,
almost action, western action film.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you come any closer, I'll shoot. It's like, I that's the thing. I think it'd be more realistic if like the kid like died. Like,
actually, you know what I'm thinking? So goofy, you know what I'm thinking? It's almost like, if I really wanted to insult it, I'd say it almost feels a bit like something a soap opera would do.
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, it is quite soap opera. But that's the thing. Like, you could say, oh, well, it's a war zone. That kind of thing could happen. True, but it's very unlikely. Again, it's more likely that someone would just die, which again would be more tragic, but more realistic than this weird scenario playing out where this guy has, almost a gun to the family.
Because it's like that being specifically targeted aspect of it that makes it less believable. Whereas, like, obviously, if it's just like some guy randomly, died, like,
it's not the specific. What I have an issue with is the fact that the British Army show up just as fucking Jamie Dornan or Pa, just as he does, and Will obviously as well.
The standoff,
the older son, like just in it's just perfect timing. So there's a standoff, and it's like and the British Army are, there as well, just at the perfect time to basically cut off all the exits. So this scenario has to happen. That's what I'm like. It's a bit unrealistic. I'm going to also talk about, and we've been hinting at this. So the British Army, they are not portrayed negatively at all, really.
Yeah.
Again, you have a scene at the beginning where this, interestingly, black British soldier
I almost was like, is this like it's black and white and I just think this guy's black?
No, he was black. Yes, because you can tell the teacher is also black. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. He's hassling the mother, saying, "Oh, yeah, what are you doing? Like, oh, is that your husband? Or how do I know? Or whatever." And that's it. I was expecting more of that throughout the movie, but there really is nothing, is there? And
No.
the British Army is really not portrayed negatively at all. And again, I think this is Branagh trying to make it uncontroversial. Also, he is, of course, a Protestant, so naturally, he knows they're on his side. No, I mean, look, maybe Branagh, it's about his life, what he experienced as a child, and he's trying to bring that to the screen. And so maybe he didn't have any bad experiences with the British Army when he was a kid. Maybe his family didn't. So, and of course, some families in Northern Ireland wouldn't have. Some would have, and he's just trying to, portray what would have happened. But, and again, they are Protestants, so I think that plays into that. But, it is something I expected the British Army, to cause some issues, because,
be a bit
of course,
more antagonistic.
If we all know what happened in the Troubles with Northern Ireland, one of the big things we all know is Bloody Sunday. Now, I didn't expect them to recreate that or anything like that, of course. But I expected, a bit more controversy with some of the British soldiers basically not acting on the up and up, like they often didn't, of course. As we know from historical accounts, and indeed, that there's always, you can find in the news, like, British soldiers who committed war crimes in Northern Ireland, and they're being tried, and the Daily Mail is saying, how dare this soldier get tried for shooting 7 kids.
Boys.
Yeah, why are they prosecuting one of our boys for shooting 7 Catholic kids in the back? Back in 1972. Why is that happening? What is going on with this woke country? But that's the thing. That right there is something you may have expected to see a little bit of that. There is really nothing, is there?
No, yeah, absolutely. It is. Yeah, I also noticed that. I mean, again, at the same time, like, I don't think it's missing from the film, because, I mean, kind of like you already said, like, it might just be unique to this kid's experience that he wasn't really aware of all this stuff going on. And I would hesitate. Oh, sorry, not hesitate. I would venture to say that probably it is true that some of the worst instances probably were exceptions. So obviously not to say that it happened at all wasn't a bad thing, but yeah, maybe it's not so unrealistic that during the occupation there would have been plenty of streets where, like, nothing went wrong. But obviously, yeah, it does just feel like a palpable absence from the perspective of somebody who knows anything about the history. So yeah, it's weird, because you can't really say, like, it's a criticism of the film, because yeah, but yeah, it just feels interesting.
No, it is interesting, and again, I think it goes to the fact that he wanted this to be, again, inoffensive. He wanted, if they're just not, that's the thing, the British Army aren't portrayed negatively, they aren't really portrayed positively, really, apart from when, they come in at the end to save the day, to save the family. But yeah, again, they aren't held as heroes, like the family regroups into a corner, in like a doorway, and like they're not like, oh, thank God the British guy showed up, there's not that attitude. So they're not just...
they're just like a fact of life.
Yeah, they're kind of just, not really involved, which, again, is a choice. But, again, maybe it's just, well, yeah, they didn't affect this kid's life, or Kenneth Branagh's life when he was growing up. And, yeah, you want this movie to be liked by everyone, because you want it to win an Oscar. And you want it to be feel good as well. And, yeah, he got one for original screenplay, didn't he?
Yes.
So let's conclude, Michael. You go first.
Yes, so I kind of already said that I think when you compare this film to other films, you kind of notice how this film is a bit lacking. I was actually thinking to myself, like, because what I was thinking is I don't really have much interest in rewatching this film. Like, I don't really think there's much to be kind of picked up and absorbed from subsequent watches. And I was going to be like, try and substantiate that point by being like, out of, the recent Best Picture nominations, this is the film I'd least like to rewatch. And then I went back and looked at some of the previous Best Picture nominations from, like, recent years, and I was like, oh wait, never mind. There's some real bad ones in here that I'd completely forgotten about. So with that said, I mean, obviously this film is not a real bad one. But like I say, the fact that it doesn't really have much rewatch value isn't great. I think by all, like, the main metrics I would judge a film, like, kind of plot coherence, the plot is just day in the life thing, which is fine but not great. Emotional resonance, I don't really think like it felt like nice and happy, but I don't think this film like gave me any like really intense emotions. And thematically, I also thought this film was a bit just. I don't know. I don't think this film like picked, and obviously you kind of touched on that, the whole like fork in the road thing. Like I don't think this film had like a clear thesis statement. And actually, sorry, one thing which I must admit I forgot to mention because I didn't have an opportunity. I liked the scene where they were talking about leaving Ireland, and a woman was just like, "Oh, this is what we Irish do," blah blah blah. And I was like, I find it kind of funny, this idea that like Irish people just sit around talking about themselves as Irish people, and I guess it makes sense because obviously, you know, of like nationalism being relatively recent for them. But I just found that funny. The idea that people walk around like talking about themselves as like their own national identity. But it speaks to the fact I think like a lot of the themes are just like mostly just people talking about stuff without much insight. I'm going to give it a middling 6 out of 10 is long story short.
The thing is, yeah, you're right. It doesn't have a thesis statement, which, you know, I like how you're using that more and more, that term.
Yeah, I
but
guess it's my new thing.
It doesn't want to have a thesis statement, and that's fine. Like, it's a simple movie that really, I think it does have rewatch ability, you know, or, you know, whatever the phrase would be, because the vibes are good, you know? The vibes, it's a movie which, again, it's shot very well. I like how it's shot. The cinematography is good. I like the production design, of course. You really get a window into this world. The music's nice. You know, the soundtrack, of course, you know, is great. And yeah, it's a sweet movie that, you know, isn't too long as well, which I think, you know, enhances it. Because again, if you're going for the right vibe, you want people to exit the movie theater and be like, "Oh, that we had a nice time watching that, didn't we? That was a nice time. It wasn't long. It wasn't, you know." And I think, you know, the fact that it's simple is fine as well. But yeah, I think, yeah, this movie is better than Licorice Pizza. I'm gonna say a 7.5 out of 10. You know, it's a fun movie with some, you know, some good feels while watching it, which again is impressive considering the conflict. You know, Kenneth Branagh really did get the tone right, and clearly, you know, this is something he was really passionate about. So, yeah, props to him for that best original screenplay, which I don't think the movie deserved to win. So, Michael, what are we reviewing next week?
Well, we're having a brief break from films nominated for Best Picture at last Oscars, and we're going to be moving on to films that will definitely be nominated for Best Picture in a future Oscar, and that is Ant-Man and the Wasp. To celebrate the release of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania?
Quantumania, wow. Yeah, so Ant-Man and the Wasp, a bit different to the movies we're doing.
Yeah, that is really funny.
Now and before. Anyway, join us next time for Ant-Man and the Wasp. Who have you been, Michael?
I've been Michael.
I've been Luke. Thanks for listening to us select and reflect on Belfast, and we'll see you, next time. Bye.
Bye.